Okay, we'll call to order this evening's meeting of the Littleton City Council. Roll call, please.
Mayor Brinkman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stallman.
Here.
Councilmember Beckman. Councilmember Cernanek.
Present.
Councilmember Cole.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Present. Councilmember
Valdez.
Here.
Okay, will you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get to the agenda, we have a new sound system. I don't know if you can already tell. Can everybody hear? That would be the first clue. So, Council, your mics are extra sensitive. You don't need to speak into them as much as we had before. And I would suggest if you're not using them to push them slightly away because they'll pick up a lot of breathing and noises. So, okay, agenda. Any changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, agenda is approved. Minutes from the study session of April 30th. Any changes? Okay, seeing none, those are approved. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to introduce Chief Doug Stevens. He's our new Chief of Police. He's now come back for day 2. Chief, if you want to come on down and say hello. So don't ask him any tough questions like what he thinks of the department or what his plans are for the next 3 years. But Chief Stevens.
Thanks. Pretty high tech. This looks like the command center. So I'm Doug Stevens, the new Chief of Police. I have about 36 hours under my belt so far, so I'm ready to go. Got everything figured out already. So
Good.
Just happy to be here. I'm looking forward to working with all of you and the rest of the city administration and the fine men and women of the Littleton Police Department and moving us forward. And I'm just excited about the opportunity. So
Great.
Nice to meet
Welcome.
you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Glad to have you.
Chief,
Yes.
one of the things you need to do is learn what cars we drive so that when we get stopped for speeding, you can say,
Yeah.
I said, we've seen your car in the photo red lights, right? No, I'm just kidding. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll have those comments stricken from the record.
Yeah, really.
He's got the yellow Mercedes that doesn't do under 80.
Yeah, little council humor.
Yeah, the rest of us drive Hondas. No worries.
When the Chief's had a little bit more time, we'll get him in front of you at a study session to talk about his views of the department and his vision and goals and objectives for the future. But we won't do that on day 2. And second, somewhat tied into that, I believe you're all aware that the Littleton Fire Rescue Association had taken a vote of no confidence, I think approximately about a month ago, on Fire Chief John Mullen. And I am working both with the association and with Chief Mullen to address those issues. And I'm confident that we have a game plan laid out now. It's in the chief's lap, so to speak, to work with the department and myself to move us forward from where we are. So I'm confident that we have a game plan on that, and we'll move forward, and we'll keep you updated on that. And we're working with, or I should say, I'm working with Joel Heineman in particular and Chief Mullen to work through those issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Cole.
Well, I've got 3 things, happy things. Last week I had the pleasure of attending Field Elementary School Leadership Day. I know a couple council members have attended in the past, and I attended also in the past, but it is worth going each year. The leadership program at Field is kindergarten through 5th grade, and it's essentially derived from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Effective People. And these kids, even in the kindergarten, are incredible. They learn 7 habits, and they apply them the whole time. Each grade applies them. The whole school does this, from the principal to the staff, all reinforces this. And these kids are so, composed, sophisticated, together. They have these habits, they can recite them, and it is incredible. I think they're the only elementary school in the city in LPS that does this, and middle school either already is doing it or will be starting it next year. But if you hear about the Leadership Day, I encourage you to go and see this in action because it's open to the public to attend. Really worthwhile. Then I also had the pleasure of having a tour of Health One South Rehab Hospital last week. And I believe, because I encouraged the director there to make an appointment through the city clerk to do a presentation at council during a scheduled appearance. So you all will see that. And then, of course, the grand opening, I think, is next week. But it is incredible. If I need rehab, man, that is where I'm going to go. And then I also visited.
Not the place to go for interior design, though. We've agreed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we had one little feedback about that. I'll probably take a paintbrush with me if I have to be there for too long. But I also attended municipal court or sat in on municipal court for about an hour last week after the council breakfast, and things seem to be going smoothly except for all the people that are showing up who wish they hadn't had to show up. But I'm very, very impressed with how the operation is going there. So thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Yes, I had the privilege last week to meet with Clarence Anthony, who is the Executive Director of the National League of Cities. We met at the Colorado Municipal League offices. He updated us on some of the activities going on in Washington with legislation, with the cooperation that started between the other national associations, and just a very pleasant opportunity to chat. There were about 12 of us in attendance in the meeting. UC Denver is doing a research as part of the Sustainable Communities Initiative grant. They chose 5 light rail stations to study parking and environmental sustainability issues. The Mineral Station was one of the 5 selected, and those findings are going to be available sometime this fall. CDOT has determined that the C470 project is regionally significant for receiving ramp funding. However, the corridor is not on the Regional Transportation Plan of Dr. Cog. The application to get on that plan will be made this summer. The funds for the planning grant for Platte Canyon Road is still under consideration. That road is a joint operation between Jefferson County, Arapahoe County, Columbine Valley, and the city of Littleton. And hopefully we'll get a planning grant through the ramp funding for that. Can we start an investigation to drill a water well at the museum? Denver Water said there's going to be no running of the Highline Canal, which is the only source of water we get into Kettering Lake. And if we don't get some water in there, that lake is probably going to be dry by the end of the summer. So we need a sustainable water supply, and a water well going through the water courts would give us that. And I do like, by the way, the new masthead that's on some of our documents in tonight's meeting. I think they're very innovative and creative, so I like that. Dr. Cog report. The Board of Directors added an amendment to the Metro Vision 35 on wildfire regulations. We added RTD as a non-voting member to the board. The governor has 3 appointments to the board, one of which is a CDOT representative. We modified the TIP policy, primarily having to do with station area urban center studies. After long discussion at the Metro Vision Issues Committee, we adopted the staff to start scenario modeling of the Metro Vision 2040 plan to see how that's going to fit. We adopted the 2013-14 strategic plan, had a legislative wrap-up of all the legislation that affected the regional cities and counties at the legislature, received a $2 million boost from the legislature for the Area Agency on Aging, which is a huge help to help cover some of the sequestration losses that comes from the federal government, particularly having to deal with Meals on Wheels. And CDOT then made a presentation to the board on the federal MAP 21 implementations, which I find very strange that it was funded for 2 years. They haven't even started the rules and regulations for how it's going to be done, and don't anticipate to start until the end of the year or early next year, and it will be almost the end of the second year of funding. I wouldn't say the government screwed up or anything like that.
But
Did you want me to say it for you?
You may, Jerry. That's all. Thank you.
Bruce.
Concerning the water well, it's my understanding that there's an old well that was on the museum site, and that Public Works Director Bloston and South Suburban are well down the road in terms of planning for how to consider implementing the possibility of extending that well, subject to available funding.
Do we allow blasting of cement in city limits?
Now, in all seriousness, there's been some conversations about is it even feasible and how much is it going to cost. But yeah, apparently there is an old well there that if it could be extended, theoretically could do that, because we've been asking the same questions.
We were told it was around 250-some-thousand to drill.
That was a number.
No idea if that's right.
Yeah, so that's what they're looking at. But I know South Suburban's been noodling on it as well. So, but it's absolutely a legitimate question.
Absolutely.
Let's see, Councilmember Cernanek and I, along with Public Works Director Bloston and
Sean Carlson from the police force.
yeah, and Tiffany's husband.
James Hooten.
Yeah, okay. The five of us ran the Colfax Marathon Relay on Sunday. We finished 13th and therefore get medals. And
14 teams running.
no, there were 13 in our classification, but
That's even worse.
we still get medals.
But you're steady at least.
Well, we do. Yeah, we are consistent.
3 in a row.
No, we finished second to last year. Which,
Oh, okay. Oh, so,
And I think the women's team finished second overall again this year, and probably will get a check presented, and that's fine. If that's what you need, to make yourselves feel good, great. But anyway, Councilmember Cernanek and I actually are in possession of our good-looking medals, and I walked off out of the house tonight and completely forgot to take them, so I will deliver them to City Manager Penny in the short run, who I'm sure will pass them along so that they can be prominently displayed in a trophy case somewhere.
Prominently.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Let's see here. Oh, I did want to pass along an unsolicited compliment. It's to Glenn in the Codes Department. Had a small business person I was talking to who indicated that they'd brought a project in and had the codes folks looking at it, and were all over it, very creative, very helpful in terms of solving the problem. I felt that there was a real positive attitude about the whole thing in terms of how to do problem solving. It's completely unsolicited, and it's not unusual when people come down and have concerns that are shared at whatever level, but I wanted to pass along the fact that somebody had a nice compliment to pass on to the staff. There is a new community piano at the Woodlawn Shopping Center. This is similar to the 16th Street Mall. I think there's a couple of these public pianos that are on the 16th Street Mall downtown Denver. And Betty Harris and a group of citizens were able to procure this and get it placed inside Woodlawn. It's available for anybody in the community to come down and play as your heart desires and as your skills permit. And there's an interest in getting it refurbished, and so if anyone has an interest in chipping in to help refurbish the piano so that it's available for the community, see Betty or talk to Betty Harris, and she'll be able to put you in contact or get you pointed in the right direction. The last thing I was going to say is I attended the LPS Transition Services graduation ceremony this morning. There were 16 special needs graduates and their families that were honored, and that included 2 who live in our house and who we're extremely proud of. And so just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Jerry?
I think we all received a copy of the email from Doctors Care that located at 603 West Littleton Boulevard, expressing their appreciation to the city of Littleton and their employees for the support that they do receive at Doctors Care. And they expressed their appreciation to all whom volunteer. Also, at Littleton Public Schools, we all really appreciate our schools, and I'd like to just mention a few things that were sent to me just today. John Brock Rappos Sr. has been recognized as one of 2 Colorado presidential scholars who will be honored in Washington, D.C. John also earned a perfect score of 36 on the ACT exam. Congratulations, John. 7 Littleton Public School seniors have been recognized as National Merit Finalists. From Arapahoe, we have John Brock, Melissa Merkel, Evan Powell. From Heritage, we have Matthew Blaylock, Eric Davidoff, and Evan Sidrow. And from Littleton, we have Catherine Payton. Littleton Public Schools, high schools, were nominated for 15 Bobby G Awards. The awards are sponsored by the Denver Center of Performing Arts. The Bob G Awards are like the Tony Awards for high school musicals. Littleton High School received 10 nominations for the musical Legally Blonde. Heritage received 2 nominations for Once Upon a Mattress, and Arapahoe received 3 nominations for Brigadoon. And our students are fantastic, and of course, our teachers are fantastic. At East Elementary, we have 5th grade teacher Chris Moore, and from Runyon Elementary, 5th grade teacher Katie Christie, who were selected as 2 of 200 educators from across the country to be part of the 2013 Learn Zillion Dream Team. They attended an all-expense-paid conference in San Francisco. The program is sponsored by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Congratulations to them. Also, Katie Christie from Runyon Elementary, she was selected to attend the Google Teacher Academy that was held in Sydney, Australia. Last but not least, we have Don Emmons, instrumental music teacher at Littleton High School. He received a Citation of Excellence Award by the National Band Association. Congratulations to all those folks. Congratulations to the teachers, students, and parents. So, let's see, and this is for the city manager. The April department report list under the pending building permits, the Littleton Preparatory School, 5301 South Bannock Street. Do you have an update on the move?
I don't have much, Jerry, but we issued the permit on the 19th. And so they've demoed it, and they're working on the remodel, and obviously they're going to get in before school. But I can get you some more for
So
tomorrow.
indeed, it's moving forward to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely moving
all right,
forward.
That's going to be so fantastic for District 2.
It will be, yes. They're moving from over at Federal and Bellevue up there, but it's confirmed. The permit's pulled. It's a go.
Great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
One last item. On Saturday, I did not run the Colfax Marathon. I would have been there with you guys. Instead, I watched the DU men's lacrosse team advance to the semifinals NCAA lacrosse championship. The team will play Syracuse this Saturday in the semifinals. The team is made up of players from the East Coast and as well as Canada, but more importantly, the team consists of players from Littleton Public Schools. In fact, the winning goal was put in by Law from Arapahoe High School, who also, I believe, got the most valuable player for the game. So
Nice.
It's 12-1 over Duke, right?
maybe next year I'll do the marathon with you guys.
There you go. Where's it being played?
With the game?
Yeah.
Philadelphia. This one was in Indianapolis.
Okay.
All the semifinals and finals are in Philly, right?
Phil?
Chief Jerry, I'm glad you brought up Bill and Melinda Gates. Bill and Melinda and my wife and Kathy and I share some attributes. We met at work.
I am so happy for you.
After that, there's only a few zeros difference. Had the opportunity to attend the United Launch Alliance Command Center for their launch last Wednesday. And it was kind of on the heels of a lot of discussion around STEM education as well. And it was kind of neat to be there for the command room. And It's interesting, one of the engineers that's present at the consoles that's looking over the engineering aspects as they're going through a launch is an individual who got his start with NASA, and he's going to be celebrating his 90th birthday this year. So that part was kind of exciting. And the other part was it was their 70th straight successful launch. So it's pretty good. Congratulations, talking about the runner-up kind of thing. Congratulations to the women's team at Arapahoe High School for track. Came in second in the state, and a couple of the runners in the 4x400 live in the neighborhood, and they won the 5A championship for the 4x400.
Excellent.
And the Economic Development Group received a summary from the business retention and expansion interviews that have been occurring, and we'll get some of the statistics. I don't have the PowerPoint presentation that they went through yet, but we'll get that to you. But it was interesting. One of the sound bites that came out of some of the interviews was that the South Metro area to these folks that have relocated their business here, and that was one of the interviews, is combination here and a culture of Midwestern work ethic and Western big thinking, which I thought was kind of interesting. So with that, back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, next, citizen appearances. We have no guest citizens, but we do have a scheduled public presentation. Frank Atwood, presentation of the approval voting and an invitation to Election Commission meeting on June 5th at 9:30 a.m. Frank?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council.
Back up some from the microphone.
Pardon me?
You're too close to the mic.
Okay. I'll try to back off from it.
Or move it.
First, we'll have a video, 2.5-minute video of animated. Do we have sound?
Term in office.
Okay.
She won the last election with 65% against her opponent, Mr. Squash, and she still enjoys strong support. Once again, Mr. Squash is quick to challenge Ms. Blueberry. But this time, they're joined by a third challenger, Mr. Peach, who shares similar views with Mayor Blueberry. Mr. Peach sweet-talks almost half of Blueberry's supporters into switching their vote to him, while Mr. Squash holds the same 35% he had last time. The votes are counted. And what's this? Mr. Squash wins? Blueberry and Peach have split the fruit vote. How did this happen? Peach's supporters also like Blueberry, but couldn't say so on their ballots. A simple solution is to change the ballot from vote for one to vote for one or more, allowing everyone to state all the candidates they support. This is called approval voting. With approval voting, the election would have gone quite differently. Peach's supporters no longer fear that a vote for Peach will help elect Squash. Instead, they show their sincere support for Peach and also Blueberry. They want to prevent Mr. Squash from winning, and they do. And approval voting accurately reflects Peach's support. Mayor Blueberry wins the election. Democracy is restored. Approval voting is more than just a smart idea in Plantsville. It's a smart idea anywhere you vote. Approval voting is used by organizations across the globe, and for good reason. It's democratic because the candidate with the most support wins. It removes the spoiler effect. Even losing candidates get an accurate reflection of support. And voting your favorite never hurts you. Start the conversation on approval voting and share this video. Then join the Center for Election Science at electology.org. Better voting starts with you.
There's no iceberg in there, though.
No, but in the video, it was vegetables versus fruits, and fruits ended up splitting the vote. And this is, with approval voting, is voting for all the candidates you approve of. The instructions are simple. Vote for one or more. I'd like to remind everyone that there'll be an election commission meeting Wednesday, June 5th at 9:30. The meeting will be held in the community room. The agenda will be approval voting, and Littleton Charter authorizes the election commission to decide voting methods. That's explicitly in the charter. I do not claim that the current voting method is broken. I will say that it is suffering stress fractures. It has inadequacies that are getting worse. Approval voting would rectify some of these inadequacies, such as too many spoilers, such as Ralph Nader and Ross Perot, for example. Too much belligerency, which we see too often. The obvious difference between our current system and approval voting is the instructions the voter receives. The current system says vote for one, implying one and only one, and otherwise your ballot, that portion of the ballot will be invalidated. For approval voting, the instructions are vote for one or more, and it lets the voter be more expressive and more sincere in his voting. The approval voting voter can, with approval voting, the voter may choose to express himself in numerous ways. This is a generic example of approval voting. The voters will decide on dessert. Our three voters will be Tom, Dick, and Harriet. Tom, our first voter, votes for his one and only favorite dessert, which is brownies. Our second voter, Dick, is a chocoholic. His acceptable desserts are both brownies and chocolate pie. If this were typical voting, he'd be trying to decide which chocolate was more electable, as some people suffered through last year. But with approval voting, he can vote for both. The third voter, Harriet, hates lemon cookies. She votes for all the desserts except lemon cookies, despite Councilmember Cernanek preferring lemon meringue pie. But I'm sorry, she's on the other side. Here's the runoff. If these were the only three ballots cast, then this would be the election results. Brownies win. On the table, we see that brownies get 3 votes, sugar cookies 1, lemon cookies 0, chocolate pie gets 2. The chocolate candidates were not spoilers to each other. Dick's crossover taste did not harm the chocolate faction. Dick voted sincerely for more than one candidate. He expressed his true preferences. A specific example of approval voting is Littleton's voting history. Littleton has used approval voting inadvertently. The last 3 citywide elections have had informal approval voting. There were 2 open seats and 3 candidates. Again, all 3 of these elections were a vote for 2 of 3 candidates. All 3 elections, in my mind, had more civility than district elections because the candidates did not want to antagonize crossover voters. In my mind, there's far more belligerency and bitterness in Littleton elections when you think of the vote for only one district elections rather than the at-large elections. Others may differ. In summary, I do not claim that the current voting method is broken. I do say it is suffering stress fractures. It has inadequacies that are getting worse, and approval voting would rectify the inadequacies. The inadequacies being both being corrected with fewer spoilers and less belligerency. Again, I'd like to announce The Election Commission meeting Wednesday, June 5th at 9:30. The agenda item will be approval voting, and I thank you all and encourage everyone to Google approval voting for more details. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, this is now the time for unscheduled public appearances, and this is an opportunity for any citizen to express an opinion or ask a question regarding city services, council policies, or other matters of community concern that are not part of the scheduled agenda. Generally, an immediate response should not be expected, and typically issues are referred to city staff for follow-up information or research, and then reported back to council and the individual that initiated the comment or inquiry. You have 4 minutes, and you need to state your name and address. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand.
Good evening, council members and mayor. Can you hear me?
Pull it down, too.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, I'm short. My name is Jerry Lopez. I live in Littleton. I am an adjunct professor for the University of Denver, and I mention this because later on I'll explain why. I'm also a University of Denver University College board member. So with that, I read the minutes that you were considering charging fees for plastic bags, what I thought was awesome. I'd like for you to reconsider that agenda that you reopened the charge for fees, and the reason why is that there are approximately 100 billion plastic bags that are used in America each year. These plastic bags are not biodegradable. They're impacting the environment and also our children. So with that, I'd like to be responsible. We as humans have conscience and responsibility, and I believe that we will be long gone, but our children will be left behind. So I would like for us to clean up those plastic bags. With that, if we encourage folks and charge a fee on the plastic bags, they will have like a Maslow's theory, which will reinforce conditioning, that they will use a paper bag, a cloth bag instead. So with that, I'd like to close that, and I'd like to also pass these so you can see some of the stats. Can I bring those to you so you can see?
You can hand them to the city clerk. Thank you.
So you can look at the stats on that, and what I'd like to propose, if instead of saying no based on emotion, that you would reconsider this to look at the stats and the studies. I came from Washington, D.C. They are using plastic bags in lower income neighborhoods as well as wealthy neighborhoods. It has not discouraged them from shopping. They continue to shop, and they now bring their cloth bags. And if you reconsider, I would be willing to go back to the University of Denver board so that we could do studies for you or consider education so that we could get students to provide that with the teachers, that they can educate the folks in Littleton, Colorado.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Pam?
Good evening, Council. I wanted to display this view graph. And my intro's last meeting, I advocated that the council vote for the moratorium. The council didn't decide to do that, but we don't need a moratorium to do this particular report. And what I'd like to ask the council to consider doing is asking the city staff to identify clearly, specifically, and openly to citizens, taxpayers, and even developers a historical record of the fees, whether they're called costs, monies, whatever they're called, I don't care, that are currently assessed on development applicants. And I wanted to pick a couple of historical projects. I think there should be 5 historical projects. And I'm suggesting that we ask the staff to report the type of fee, cost, or money, regardless of what it's called, when it was collected, how it was retained by the city, whether it's in escrow or general fund, when it was spent or dispersed to the final user, for example, Denver Water, Xcel Energy, and the site-specific use or impact, for example, utilities, and the non-site-specific uses, which would be parks, but it could also be street widening, traffic fixes, parking structures, whatever. And My first two examples are Nevada Place East, which was in 2007-2008. It's at 5540 to 5599 South Nevada Street, and also Prince Street Commons, which was completed in 2004. For both of these projects, we should have a historical record of what was charged and collected and what it was called. And this is to help us understand our impact fee proposal. So that's my request, and I'm going to ask you to consider it and propose it yourselves if you think it's worthwhile. I think it is. If I were in your shoes, I'd want to know this stuff. I'm also hoping that it might actually exist. In terms of accountability, if I were managing this and I told a developer that I expected certain things, I would want to check in my staff that we had collected those fees. So I'm kind of hoping it's low impact.
Thank you, Pam.
And it's reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty?
Good evening. I'm Betty Harris. I live at 6281 South Cedar Street in Littleton. Last Thursday at the pub, a gentleman who appeared to be with the Alliance Developers named Mike O'Brien said that the Littleton Corridor Study is designed to allow multifamily luxury apartments, and that he thinks progress means that kind of development from the railroad to Broadway. Assuming that Mike O'Brien gets his wish and the commissions from selling all those properties to out-of-town developers, then Littleton's retail leakage will be a giant sucking sound. Speaking of retail, part of the problem with Littleton sales revenue is caused by our very seedy, that's spelled S-E-E-D-Y, retail along the corridors. I've been here since 1983 when I was much younger, and I seldom visit any of those retail establishments. Why? Because females do most of the family's shopping, and because they must do a great deal of multitasking. So they go to large shopping malls because they do not have to stop at a lot of different places to get what they need. Retail in Littleton, assuming it has what you want, requires multiple stops. I often ask people their opinions, and last week I talked with a 30-something-year-old couple who helped move the piano. And one works downtown Littleton, one works in Denver and rides the light rail. And they told me at various times wanted to stay downtown for dinner and entertainment. They used to love Abe's, but it went out of business. And the wife said that there was simply no entertainment downtown other than going out to drink. And last week, I was also talking with a woman who came to get some ground cover plants that I was giving away. She said she just bought a house in Littleton, and I looked at her and said, "Aren't you in the seniors category?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "According to familiar popular knowledge, you should be moving to a smaller place." And she said she rented a 800 square foot house on Prince Street, and she just bought a house. And I said, "What? Why?" And she said, "Because I wanted a more room and I wanted a yard so that I could garden." So I thought that was very interesting that all these people are telling us that all these old people want to downsize, and here's all these old people, boomers, actually moving up, like I did myself. This past week, while just driving around in the areas that I frequent in Littleton, I saw 5 large roll-offs in driveways of those older houses, you know, the subprime ones that nobody seems to think is worth keeping. People are actually redoing them. The boomers' parents are starting to die off, and they're leaving money and assets. This leads to a lot of those older people, like yourself, for instance, actually buying houses and moving up. Now, if Littleton has any retail that's worth shopping at, they're going to be buying things for those houses that they are buying and redoing. So let's consider whether or not we really need or want masses of multi-family, high-rise buildings in the middle of downtown. I don't think it's going to solve the problem if you don't solve your retail problem.
Thank you, Betty. Carol?
Hi. I'm Carol Brezek. I live in the 4th District. Am I good? One thing I've already noticed, Bruce, when you turn to talk to Jim, the microphone's not picking you up.
Oh, okay.
But it is much better. I hope you guys spend a little bit of money in the community room next. Last time I was here, I was really short on time and decided that this topic really needed a little bit more attention. And so I would like to inform the council tonight that the petitions that I quickly mentioned at the last meeting have been approved and are being printed. I failed to mention at the last meeting that there are 5 sponsors of this petition. They are Betty Harris, Frank Atwood, Jose Trujillo, Mary Bradford, and myself. Both of the charter changes that citizens will be petitioning for will benefit the citizens of Littleton by making our government more open and transparent, and provide the citizens a more significant role in zoning changes that impact them directly. The first petition addresses executive sessions and will limit the reasons why an executive session can be convened. It will also require a full recording of the entire meeting and a longer retention of that record. All legal matters will have to be decided in a regular meeting. No more settling lawsuits and personnel agreements behind closed doors under the protection of non-disclosure clauses. Any settlement will have to be voted on publicly, so the taxpayers will know exactly how each council member is willing to spend our money. Taxpayers deserve no less. Council will be able to meet in an executive session to discuss any legal matter that has been filed in the courts in order to obtain legal advice on any pending legal matter. Council will also be able to meet for any matter required to be kept confidential by federal or state laws. The City of Boulder operates without any executive sessions at all. This proposed change does not go that far in limiting executive sessions. If Boulder can completely eliminate executive session and do the public's business in front of the public, certainly Littleton can limit their executive sessions and do the majority of the public's business in public. The second petition would incorporate state statute into our charter. Because Littleton is a home rule city, the state statutes that we are proposing to be included in our charter automatically do not apply to Littleton, not because there was a deliberate effort to exempt Littleton for the law. Littleton is exempt just because all home rule cities are exempt, but that does not mean that it should not be part of our charter. We currently have some of the state laws in our charter. In fact, the entire petition process to amend the charter is, by charter, Title 20 of the Colorado Revised Statute. So it's not unusual for state law to be part of our charter. So the second petition will require a 2/3 majority vote for all zoning changes that meet the 2 conditions as laid out in the Colorado state law. Number 1, if a protest petition has been submitted by 20% or more of the property owners around the zoning change, a 2/3 vote of the entire council would be required for approval of the zoning change. If the planning board does not recommend the approval of a zoning change, a 2/3 affirmative vote of the entire council would be required for that approval. I think David Mitchell said it best at the last council meeting. A zoning is a promise of sorts to the current citizens of Littleton. Citizens rely on the zoning of the property in their neighborhood, and when a change in that zoning is being considered, we believe a higher standard than a simple majority should be required. Citizens are at a real disadvantage during the public process of a rezoning hearing. The staff, often sounding like the applicant, has enormous resources and unlimited time in front of council. The applicant also has unlimited time in front of the council and money to invest in moving their project forward. The citizens have 4 minutes, a real disadvantage. This change of requiring a 2/3 majority on rezoning of property would provide the citizens with a slight advantage, an advantage that they deserve as residents and contributing members of the City of Littleton. This change would not have any impact on those zonings that are not controversial, such as the recent rezoning for Littleton Commons and the Breckenridge Brewery. If you have any questions on the 2 petitions, I would be happy to respond. You know where to find me. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone else? Norm?
Good evening, Council. Norm Brown, 6081 South Spotswood Street. A very good stone's throw, I suppose, from Stern Parkway, and that is considered in item 9A tonight on your agenda, Littles Creek Flood Hazard Area Delineation. I've mentioned this to the city manager. There's no surprise here. I haven't heard back from him, but I talked a couple times, and we looked at some of the trail that begins at Cayley for you runners, goes sort of southeast toward Broadway, goes at least as far as Elodie along there. It's separate from traffic, nice concrete trail, pretty well maintained, got a little bit of space on each side. That first section of the rebuilding, I guess you'd call it, of that floodplain or flood control area that is from Cayley and into Windermere, a relatively small section, did not include any kind of a trail. If you are going to continue toward downtown, you end up along the street or on the sidewalk adjacent to the street there, not along the parkway. So I showed the city manager sort of where that came to an end and suggested that as we had our visioning, I heard you guys talk about connectivity. That's a wonderful diagonal through the city from Broadway, basically, to the downtown area, particularly in light of the proposal for a trail along the railroad depression in the vicinity of the city ditch that then would go almost perpendicular to the one I'm referring to along Stern Parkway. I see in item 9A that you're funding drainage and flood control improvements, and that's great. I certainly hope that you will encourage staff and the construction of this to include a trail that is as removed from traffic as possible for the benefit of runners. One of my favorite songs for you runners involves something along the line of you can't run away forever, but it doesn't hurt to have a good head start. So well done, those of you who came in 13th. The last thing that that occurred to me, Mr. Atwood certainly literally presented some food for thought for all of us, didn't he? Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else, we'll move on to agenda item 7A. This is a motion to begin a 30-day public comment period for the naming of what was the Murray property to Creekside Experience. A park naming subcommittee has existed for a number of years for the special purpose of naming new parks and open space parcels, as the South Platte Working Group has acquired a number of these parcels and properties, and we have put them under master plans and designed around them. At that point, then it becomes somewhat important to name those so that they can become a directional resource. The subcommittee consists of myself, Councilmember Taylor, Communications Director Kelly Nardi, representatives from South Suburban Parks, including John Austin Miller, the board chair, board member Pam Miller, and communication director Teresa Cope. We met recently on the Murray property, and the master plan has been completed, and we are preparing to send requests for funds to Great Outdoors Colorado. They require a name in order to consider this, and South Suburban also needs to approve this. Our approval process consists of having a 30-day public comment period, so that's why we're bringing it to council this evening, and I thought we had a visual. Do we have a visual? Okay. Just to refresh council's memory, they did bring the master plan to us. It included Murray and Lee Gulch and Oxbow. The Murray property is actually, I think the best way to direction it for myself is it's behind the Humane Society. It's abuts the Fire Training Center. Okay, so the first one. Can you move it over? Can it move over? Anyway, this is just to give you guys, try to give you a visual of it. This is the kind of the lay of the land. What I wanted to do is give you a bit of an idea as to why we named it the Creekside Experience. This particular piece, we have built a bridge. Big Dry Creek runs through there. So we've got Mary Carter to the west. We've got Big Dry Creek. Big Dry Creek runs at the top here, which is to the south. We have built a bridge over Big Dry Creek so people can go to the Murray property, cross over Big Dry Creek, walk Big Dry Creek down to Mary Carter. And I think it was 2 years ago that when we finished the East Side Trail, the dual trail along the Mary Carter down to this area, we've now got that nice confluence there with where the bridge is. So this particular piece has parking, and Kelly, you can go to the next one. This shows some of the activities. There's going to be a number of interactive type of things. There's a stump, and I can't read those. Kelly, can you read them?
Log stump balance, log balance beam on the right. Up above is Murray property, creek access vignette.
Okay. There's going to be a tree house. There's going to be a number of different kind of outdoor experiences with just natural environment, logs, stumps, some activities that the kids can get in the river. It'll be not so much like a gold panning thing, but kind of a river experience, get crawdads and stuff like that. But it's kind of designed so that it is more of an experiential type of event, type of activities out there, so that somebody could go and park and sit under a tree while their kids enjoy upwards of, I think there's probably close to 6 or 7 different activities. So in trying to come up with the name, we're exhausting a lot of river names, but we came up with Creekside Experience because we wanted it to be a name that gave kind of an action, so that like the Lee Gulch Overlook is really just that. It's an overlook of kind of the west and the river. But this is really more of an experience. So the name we've chosen is Creekside, and as long as council approves us moving forward, then with the 30-day naming period or 30-day public comment period for that name, then at the conclusion of that, it'll come back to us for final approval and then go to South Suburban. Phil.
Madam Chairman, I move for approval of consent agenda item 7A.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, ready to vote?
Motion carries. The vote is unanimous.
Oh, we have a phantom
I'll
voter.
vote for Bruce.
Okay, thank you.
Just in case.
Okay. Agenda item 9A. This is the Little Creek's flood hazard area delineation. Charlie, do you want to give us some information?
don't stand too close, right? Council, I'm Charlie Boston. I'm the city's Director of Public Works, and we do floodplain management in the engineering division of the Public Works Department. Little's Creek, for those who are unfamiliar with the name, is also referred to as Stern Ditch to a lot of people in Littleton. It runs through the middle of Stern Parkway between Lake Avenue and Cayley, and then also between Aladdy and Broadway. It does include a portion of Little's Creek Park, otherwise known as the Boat Park to many people. Little's Creek also flows through Stern Park, over the railroad depression, and down towards the river past the 5280 restaurant, and on the north side of the Dish facility at Bowles Avenue and Santa Fe Drive. Actually, it's on the south side of that building. Some time ago, Urban Drainage Flood Control District, along with the Colorado Water Conservation Board and the Southeast Metropolitan Stormwater Authority, did another analysis of the floodplain for Little's Creek and determined some minor adjustments needed to be done on the floodplain delineation. With that, they produced a new map. If Littleton adopts this map, such as Urban Drainage has done, as well as the Colorado Water Conservation Board, then people who are in the floodplain of Little's Creek will still be eligible for a 15% discount on their flood insurance if they so desire to have it. Most people who have mortgages on properties that are within the floodplain typically must have that flood insurance as required by their lender. If they do not have a mortgage, they don't necessarily have to have the flood insurance. But if they do, this would provide for them the 15% discount. That is the major advantage for Littleton residents if the City Council adopts this map. If you have any questions, Council, I'll be glad to address them.
Any questions, Bruce?
Oh, yeah. Per Norm's comment, can you address the trail issues? The trail he's referring to, and frankly, you know, if we'd have had this trail in place already, we might not have finished 13th. I'm just throwing that out there, but
speak for yourself. Yes, I can address it a little bit, and I'd be glad to pursue this issue more than now that it's been brought to the Council's attention. First of all, we do not believe Urban Drainage Flood Control District, which is building the next section of the Little's Creek flood improvements, will pay for a share of that trail. They pay for maintenance facilities, and because there is a road adjacent to the channel, it is highly unlikely that Urban Drainage will put too much money into building a pedestrian trail adjacent to a road and adjacent to the ditch. The floodplain improvements that Norm referred to will begin at Windermere Street and go in a northwesterly direction towards Lake Avenue and Stern Park. The Council has already approved this project, and we've designated funds for it in the 2013 budget, and we are within weeks of putting that project out to bid. However, we ran into a conflict on this project in that we are quite a bit short of funds. And Urban Drainage is asking us to put up additional money, and they would match that in order to make this project successful. I will be coming to Council on June 4th for a request for more money from the Storm Drainage Fund as well as the Sanitary Sewer account in order to balance this budget. And we do have the money available, it's just not allocated to that project, and it also includes an intergovernmental agreement for Littleton to share this with Urban Drainage District. So one issue we have is money, and adding a trail to the existing project would add more costs and delay the project even further. Second issue is whether or not there's enough land after the channelization is complete in order to accommodate a trail, realizing there are a large number of crabapple trees that are planted along Stern Parkway there where the trail is proposed to be. Thirdly is what I would like to do is take a look at that trail and see if there's a way to shoehorn it in on one side of that ditch. And this is going to take quite a bit of time, and I would appreciate not having to delay the flood improvements while we study that issue. So I think there may be a way to try and do a narrow trail in there. If we can, we'll present it as a 2014 budget request. And it's just a matter of whether or not literally we can shoehorn it in and then how much it costs and whether or not the funds are available. I do not believe it should be constructed with these flood improvements, otherwise it'll delay the project indefinitely at this point.
The trail Norm's referring to, I think, stops at Aladdy. To the east of Aladdy, it's just bike lane, isn't it, on Stern Parkway?
That's right. There is a pedestrian trail along Stern Parkway from Cayley Avenue southeast to Aladdy Street, just to the south of Euclid Middle School.
Right.
At that point, there is an on-street bike lane from Aladdy Street to about Apache Street, where Littles Creek Park picks up a path.
Right,
yeah,
right.
There's land there. So we got an on-street path, but as Norm suggested, an off-street pedestrian bike path or pedestrian path, which would be a different type of path for bicyclists or pedestrians to use, so they would not be on the sidewalk or within the street. Much of the sidewalk along this area is very narrow. It's not a standard 5-foot sidewalk. So I can appreciate the fact that it is a difficult pedestrian area to walk on a very narrow sidewalk along that street.
And lastly, do you think, I understand the issue with respect to the fund availability to accommodate this out of the storm drainage. Hypothetically, would open space funds be available for something like this?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Bill.
Charlie, if I understand correctly, it's the question before us today is to adopt the report title, not dealing with the PATH project.
That's correct.
But there is a project that's in place in dealing with the channelization of the drainage along there.
That's correct.
Just a quick question, is that project that's doing the channelization that's proceeding now, does that preclude or move into what would be the space that a possible pedestrian trail would be, or is it just, this is where the channelization needs to be and we need to find other space?
My best answer on that is I don't know. And when this is presented again on June 4th for additional funding, I will have the answer at that time.
And then, knowing that we have a narrow question in front of us, Madam Chairman, I move the City of Littleton adopt the report titled Flood Hazard Area Delineation, Little's Creek.
We have a couple more questions. Peggy?
Yeah, Charlie, a friendly question here. The flood hazard area delineation is dated July 2012. Why 10 months later are we getting it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of that.
Why are we getting this 10 months after the delineation?
The report has to be submitted through Urban Drainage District and reviewed, and the Colorado Water Conservation Board before it comes to the city. Why did it take 10 months? Some things just don't go very fast, is the best way to explain it.
I was fairly certain it wasn't anything to do with your office.
No, we processed this as soon as it was submitted to us.
Okay.
We put it together right away. Sometimes there is a meeting or two delay just because sometimes I just don't have the time to prepare it all, but this one went as quickly as we could do it.
Thank you.
It was not a delay on our part.
Thank you.
Jim?
Yeah, it's been my experience with urban drainage that if they don't need a pathway to get their vehicles in there for maintenance, they're not going to help pay for anything. So I do agree with what you said, Charlie, is that we move forward with this project now and look at funding for 2014 to try to put a trail in there. Because I'm a very big supporter of making trail connections.
I understand.
So we made big, huge loops to maneuver around the city.
Any other questions? Okay. Phil, do you want to make a motion now?
Sure. Thank you. I move that the City of Littleton adopt the report titled Flood Hazard Area Delineation, Littles Creek, dated July 2012.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the delineation. Ready to vote?
First.
Yeah.
Vote is unanimous. Motion carries.
Okay, item 9B is City Attorney Legal Services discussion. Last week we had a study session in which, well, last couple of weeks, we've interviewed legal service firms, and last week we interviewed our last two and had slight discussion and have had an opportunity to spend some time with our notes and our thoughts. And so this evening, Council, what we want to do is, we had 4 firms that we talked to. The first firm was Bradley, Devitt, Haas, and Watkins. For brevity, we'll call it Bradley. The second firm we talked to was Murray, Dahl, Kuchenmeister, and Renaud, and we'll call that Murray. The third firm we spoke to was Hayes, Phillips, Hoffman, and Carberry. We'll call that Hayes. And the final firm we spoke to was Kissinger and Fellman. We'll call that Fellman. So this evening, what we need to do is get this down to a manageable, hopefully twosome or onesome. And then we will be going into an exec after the meeting, part of which will be to discuss negotiations for the contract. So I think what we'll do is we'll just go down through the dais, and if you would give us either your top firm or if you have top 2 firms, and if you want to give a little bit of explanation as to why, you can. If not, that's fine too. Phil, we'll start with you.
Sure. The firm referred to as Murray and the firm referred to as Hayes are my top 2. Part of the rationale is I felt both firms had the bench depth of what we've had some discussion about, which is a firm that on occasion would have to reach outside for some specialty work such as water attorneys or the such, but had a very, very broad bench. And so they were my top 2.
Thank you. Jerry?
All 4 were excellent candidates, but however, I do go with Hayes and then Bradley.
Hayes is your number 1 and Bradley's your number 2?
Correct.
Okay.
Are we going to do, what kind of polling does Frank want to do?
Approval. Billy, let's give it a shot. Frank laughed. I don't know how to do it without Frank. Okay, Bruce.
Where's Frank when we're talking about?
I know.
Yeah, call him back in.
Bruce.
I thought all were strong. My top 2 were very close. In fact, the third one was right there, and I'd be more or less comfortable with any of them. I'd probably go Fellman and then Murray. I like the fact that Fellman had experience on both sides of the dais, if you will. I thought that was good. I also like the fact that they represented 50-50 public-private. I think there's some advantages to having experience on public as well as private kinds of activities that maybe can cross over. And I thought they did a nice job of being aggressive on their pricing. It's not to say the others weren't good by any stretch of the imagination, but I had a slight lean to Fellman overall.
Okay, Jim?
I think I expressed previously that my real preference is to do an in-house attorney instead of a firm, but I don't think that's our question before us right now. I will tell you that I knew a principal in each of the 4 firms that we interviewed. Personal friends with a principal in each one. My 2 preferences would be Hayes and Fellman. I was very comfortable with both. I thought they would both provide us the type of services that would serve the city well, and just a comfortable feeling with those 2. I agree, though, that all 4 of them were very good firms and could represent us.
Peggy?
My first preference was Fellman. I liked the experience, as has been said, on both sides of the issues, someone who served on a council. My second preference, it was hard for me to decide, so I'm going to have 2 second preferences. One is Murray, and one is Hayes. And I can't differentiate those enough to give just 1 second. So,
okay. My two were in order: Murray and Hayes. I thought the depth of experience with Murray in terms of the land issues was substantial. They all had good experience on it, but I think that there is definitely, I think they had an edge on that. I did like both of their responses to the issue of the relationship with council and how to work with council, and their where they realize they're advisors and not and that crossover with policymaking. I think that's an important distinguishing delineation that whoever we work with has to have, because whatever we're going to do, we got to hit the ground running on this. And so those were my two. Okay, so what we have is we only have one vote on the Bradley group, so I would say that one is eliminated. We have 4 votes on the Murray group.
Now, does Phil's one-place votes count as one place or half points?
Well, Phil, can you make a determination between Murray and Hayes?
They have different pieces. I would probably say Hayes before Murray by a nidge.
Okay.
Nidge it is.
Peggy, any chance of getting you down to 2?
I'd lean toward Murray, so that would eliminate Hayes.
Okay. So we have 4 for Murray, 3 second place and 1 first place. We have 4 for Hayes, 3 first place and 1 second place, and 3 for Fellman. Jim, was your Hayes or Fellman your first place?
Fellman was first.
Okay. So Fellman has 3, but they're all first places. So I guess we need a motion to determine which 2 or 3. You're welcome to move to take 3. Bruce?
Question, given the proximity of this thing, might it make sense to table it until Councilmember Beckman's back and get his input on this? I mean,
well, Councilmember Beckman he knew that we were going to do this evening, and he has, I think he shared some information with you, Michael.
It doesn't count, though.
Well, and I can say that one of his comments was he thought that we couldn't go wrong with any of the 4. So he did not have.
But he could be a tiebreaker, though. I mean, he'd have to pick. At some point, he'd have to, pick 1 versus 2.
It would be helpful, yeah.
Well, you can vote. You can make a motion to table it until Councilmember Beckman's here. We have been dealing with this for about 3 months. We have at least 2 that we should go in to negotiations with.
Let's just go back. Let's do another count.
Okay. All right. Jerry?
I will go with Feldman.
Well, that just messed it all up. Okay, so somebody needs to make a motion. We've got 3 to go in on exec with.
You want to go into 3 with exec? Go into exec with 3?
Unless you guys want to narrow it down right now to 1 choice and not 2. Pick 1.
Can we, how do we feel about negotiating with 3? Or are we,
I think it's too many to negotiate with, and I think that probably at the end of the day you're going to have very slight differences, you know, $5 here, something like that.
I'm fine with one.
I think it's better to go in with one. Is everybody willing to give up their second choice?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Go with their first choice? Okay. If we give up second choices, we go in with Hayes and Fellman.
Well, could we pause a second while I read notes here? Because there may be something that would lead me to suggest a process. I would, at least from my notes, so you all can see what your notes are, but for Murray, he said he would be more than happy to provide on-site staffing every day, et cetera. Hayes would have office hours, but not 3 or 4 days a week. So I think.
Well, these are all things we can negotiate with them.
Well,
too.
I know, but that since we're dealing with a 1 or a 2, I mean, those two maybe as one or not one to be talking to.
Well, at this point, under Murray, we had 3 second-place votes and 1 first-place vote. Under Hayes, we had 2 first-place and 1 second-place. And under Fellman, we had 3 first-place. No, 4 first-place.
I thought Hayes has 3 first-place.
Have that many first-place.
Hayes has Phil and Jerry are first-place. Jim is a second-place.
So is mine.
Oh, did you make yours a second?
You moved yours to Fellman? So you are not first place on Hayes?
That's correct. I moved to Feldman. And the reason is, I
okay.
think because of they seem very familiar with the local stuff. He's served on a city council, and I just think he would work. Again, they would all work out for us, but I think in order to move this thing along, I'd be just happy to eliminate it down to Feldman.
So you moved your first to him or your second?
So right now we have, on Fellman, we have Bruce as a first choice, Jim's first choice, Peggy's first choice, and Jerry's first choice. Under Hayes, it's Phil's first choice, and that's it. So if based on that, we would go in as Fellman with the choice.
Okay.
But you want to do 2? I guess it doesn't. I guess if we're comfortable
Got
with
it
1,
down to
it is
1.
what it is.
It's 1.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Need a motion.
Well,
Last. It's for the exact thing.
I move we commence negotiations with Kissinger and Fellman PC for purposes of providing city attorney services to city council.
Okay. Need a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to begin negotiations with Kissinger and Fellman for city attorney services.
Motion carries with council members Fernanik voting no.
Okay, 9C is I need a motion to remove planning board member Scott Ranville. Council?
I'm sorry?
I need a motion to remove planning board member Scott Ranville from the planning board.
I will make that motion.
Okay, we need a second.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to remove Scott Ranville from the planning board. Is there discussion?
Yes. We've had other issues with another board with an individual, and that individual had a chance to speak to the person they had the issue with. I don't know. I know that you had talked to Scott, and I did. You know, I know your comments that you made, but did he get a chance to talk to Glenn? Because that seemed to be where his real issue was.
I don't know if he talked to Glenn or not. He had the opportunity to talk to Glenn. Glenn is...
Well, that's the question. If he did,
Yes, sir.
I mean, yes, you're right. He absolutely had an opportunity, but...
I have not spoken to Scott since the May 13th planning board meeting.
Just the email stuff.
He's emailed me, right?
And those are the ones that you shared?
With the other planning board members?
The emails?
No, those were from Scott, the two that.
Right, those are the
shared.
ones that you shared with all of us.
I shared.
Or somebody said, yeah, okay. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Correct.
Cool. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce?
Yeah.
Well, what I was looking at, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
If I may. What I'm looking to do, I just want to make sure that we're treating all board members that have issues the same. And I know that last time this sort of came up, it quickly got resolved. This one just had a different flavor to it, I think. There was opportunities to resolve it, and it didn't happen. Not on the city's fault. I think from the communication that we did receive from Scott and from the conversation I think that you had, there was the same opportunity as the other member. I'm just trying to make sure, in my mind, I need to make sure my way in this to be fair. The other one was resolved very quickly. This one, it just didn't happen. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm reluctant in a general sense to do this because I know people that volunteer for these positions are, they want to come in and they want to do something they feel passionate about and they want to serve the city. It's a volunteer deal. And the intent is that people have a good experience. There can be situations that arise where passions run high on a given issue one way or the other, and it's regrettable that ultimately those can't be resolved in a potentially productive manner. But we've had situations, and my recollection in the past is when we get a request from the board to make a change that, frankly, I think you sort of have to honor that by virtue of the fact that they're closer to the situation than we are. We can see what happens on the video when we watch the meetings, in this case with the planning board, but we don't attend the meetings and we don't have the personal interaction that goes along with it. So it's difficult. It's not desirable by any stretch of the imagination. We absolutely want all of the board and commission members to have a good experience, and we very, very much appreciate their willingness to volunteer and serve and do important work on behalf of the city. And so this is a regrettable situation, in my opinion.
Jim?
I just think it's a major problem when you put in an email that you're not going to be attending a study session that has to deal with the comp plan and the rewrite of the comp plan, and that you won't be in attendance at the next zoning meeting, and you want all correspondence concerning the next zoning meeting to be removed from sending anything to him because he didn't want to hear anything about it. And I just think that is a problem, and it's not one I'm willing to live with from a board and commission member who is kind of slap in the face, so to speak, about the other board members on the planning board as well as city council. So I see no reason why we need to have Scott remain a planning board member.
Any other discussion? Bill?
Yeah. Not easy when you have a volunteer that's stepped forward and certainly cares about the area of interest. However, we have some behavioral aspects of when we're looking at our boards and commissions, and we work pretty hard on those, which is have respect for each other, engage in conversation and discourse, and be in a position where you don't always have to agree, but I mean there is an element of getting along, and at one level, life's a little too short for being in a position where it seems that it's always a battle. And to Jim's point, it seems like there's an inordinate withdrawal from activity, and that adds to something that concerns me.
Thank you. Anybody else? I would say that we did receive a recommendation from the planning chair, who had also heard from a number of members of the planning board that this relationship was not working and had not been working for some time. The particular incident was handled outside of the bounds of what this council has agreed is appropriate and professional behavior for our boards and commissions. So that is why this is before us this evening. We have a motion and a second to remove Scott Ranville from the planning board. Ready to vote?
Motion carries. Vote is unanimous.
Okay. So we are moving on to three motions to go into, one motion to go into exec for three different purposes. Councilmember Stallman, Mayor Pro Tem Stallman.
Thank you. Question, do you want to vote on each of these separately?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. All right. The first motion then is pursuant to Colorado
Mayor,
revised
the light
statute.
on still.
Time out.
I'm sorry.
No,
The
go ahead.
Light's still on.
Oh.
There you go. Sorry. Okay, thank you. Pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute, Section 24-6-402, Sub 4, Sub A, for the purpose of discussing the purchase and sale of real property pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute, Section 24-6-402, Sub 4, Sub E, for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiation, and instructing negotiators on the purchase and sale of real property, and pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute, Section 24-6-402, Sub 4, Sub B, for the purpose of receiving legal advice regarding the purchase and sale of real property. And for purposes of this, I'm going to assume we need Deputy City Attorney Kristen and City Manager Penny.
Need a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Ready to vote?
Motion carries. The vote is unanimous.
Okay, second motion. Pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-402, Sub 4, Sub E, for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators on possible annexation, and pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute Section 24-6-402, Sub 4, Sub B, for the purpose of receiving legal advice regarding such annexation. And again, included in this discussion for the exec session would be Deputy City Manager Kristen and
City Attorney.
what did I say? City Manager. Deputy City Attorney Kristen and City Manager Penny. Sorry.
Second.
Okay, motion and second.
Question.
Yeah.
Do we get to at least say what area we're talking about annexation for?
This would be property adjacent to Lucent, south of C-470.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Ready to vote?
Motion carries. Vote is unanimous.
And the third, pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute Section 24-6-402, Sub 4, Sub E, for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations and developing strategy for negotiation and instructing negotiators regarding the City Attorney Legal Services contract with Kissinger and Fellman PC. And included in this portion of the executive session would be Deputy City Attorney Kristen, City Manager Penny, and HR Director Eric Von Savage.
I don't think I'll be in that unless you want me to.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, then we will not have Deputy City Attorney Kristen in on that, but Penny and Von Savage will be in on it.
Okay. Need a second?
Second.
Ready to vote?
Hang on. Do you have a question?
Motion carries. Vote is unanimous.
No, that's fine. I would like to do the last one first so that Eric doesn't have to sit outside waiting for us. So if we did the first one
I know.
first.
We can go in
and then
any
you can
order.
leave.
Okay. Okay. Okay, seeing, well, we are going into exec.
But are we going to reconvene here? Back.
We will not come back into this room.
Right.
To continue any business.
So you need what you're.
No.
No, you're right. You're right.